Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode on Chapter 3 for genetics. So what we covered over last time for our last video, we essentially went over X-linked inheritance and Y-linked inheritance. But the question now is, let's say this is an exam, and let's say the professor gives you a question that, you have a data set, and you're trying to figure out if a particular trait is inherited through sex linkage or if it isn't. And a lot of people struggle on this topic in particular because they're not really sure how they can figure out if like, let's say we have this data set right here, they're not really sure if you can really, they don't know how to figure out if it's inherited through sex linkage or not. And especially if you have a lot of males and females like this, and there's multiple different types of phenotypic groups that you have, it can be very difficult to distinguish if a trait is inherited through sex linkage or not. Okay? And then next episode in the series, we're going to cover over pedigree analysis and how to solve pedigrees, stuff like that. So be sure to check that out. But for now, what we're doing is we're going over the easiest way to figure out if there is sex linkage from these particular problems. Okay. Cool. So I have a total of 3 different questions, and one of this. Oh, now it's loading. Perfect. So the third question is from your textbook, and we're going to go over both of them. 1 and 2 are my own questions, so let's try them out. So for number 1, what we're doing is we're taking a true rooting individual that is tall and has long hair, and you're crossing them with an individual that is small and short-haired. And then it tells you that the F1 are all tall and long, equally distributed between the males and the females. So then you have this following data set where you have 18 long-haired males that are tall and short-haired small males, which are 5. And then same thing for the females as well. So in this particular problem, it might seem as an easy solution, but I recommend doing this at first. What you should do is you should always separate out the traits away from one another. So assuming that there is no linkage, like actual gene linkage between these 2 different genes, you would have to independently assort each gene away from one another. So basically, you would separate one trait from another trait, basically. So what I mean by that is, we would choose a trait which is hair length, so short hair versus long hair, and what we're going to do is we're going to compare if the ratio or the proportion between the males and the females are the same for that particular trait. If they aren't the same, then therefore, if the ratio or proportion aren't the same between the males and the females, then therefore that particular trait is due to sex linkage. So hopefully that kind of made sense. So we're going to try this out right now. The total is 52 individuals. And what I recommend doing for these problems is always find the ratio of every particular phenotype. So the way how you find a ratio is you're going to find the proportion first. So basically, the number of phenotype divided by total, and you're going to multiply this by the denominator of a monohybrid dihybrid, etc. Depending on how many genes are present. So basically what I mean by that is, let's say we're getting a particular proportion. So let's say we're getting a proportion here. If we suspect that there's one gene involved for a particular cross, we would multiply it by 4 because 4 is a denominator of a monohybrid cross. And that'll give us a ratio. If you think there's 2 different genes involved, you would have to multiply by 16 instead. And if you think there's 3 or etc., you would have to multiply by 64, and you would have to keep going on. Okay. In this particular problem, there's 4 different phenotypes. Right, there's 4 different phenotypes for the males and the females. Well, technically, yeah, there would actually only be 2 different phenotypes, but because if you combine the males and females together, you would only have 2 different phenotypes. But for this right here, what we're going to do is, like I said, you always want to stick to the main point of trying to figure out if there's sex linkage or not. Is first make each trait independent of one another. So basically what I mean by that is we would only look at the long hair versus the short hair first. So what we have here is the number of long hair males is 18 versus the short hair is 5. And then the number of long hair females is 21. And then the short hair is 8. So this is the female. So what we want to do now is we want to figure out if the ratios are the same between males and females. Okay. So yeah, let's do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure this out. So what we're going to do is, for the males, we're going to do 18. And the total between the males, and with this, what you want to do is the total between the males and females should be different, and you should use the totals between the males. So what I mean by that is you would add 18 plus 5, you'll get a particular number, 23, and you're going to use this total as your denominator for the equation. Because we're only looking at the males, not both of them together, okay? Okay, cool. So yes, let's do that. So 18 divided by 23, and because we suspect there's only one gene involved for the hair trait, we're going to multiply by 4. So we get a ratio that is around 3. And then we're going to do that same thing for short hair. It's around 8.7. So it's around, it's basically like a 3-to-1 ratio right here. But since we just have a very small data set here, we're most of the time not going to get a really accurate ratio here, or even just a proportion in general. The total between the males and the total between the females is 29. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do 21 divided by 29 multiplied by 4, and then 8 divided by 29 multiplied by 4. So we get something around 2.9. So basically 3. And this is 1.1. So essentially, looking at these ratios show you that between the trait of the length of the hair, between males and females, you have exactly the same phenotypic ratios for that particular trait. So what we can say is that, therefore, length of hair is not due to sex linkage. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing, but for the length of the individual, which is tall or being short or being small. So we're going to do the exact same thing. We have 18 tall males and we have 5 short males, or small based on the problem. And then for the females, it's basically the same thing, tall, 21. So essentially what's happening here, we have the exact same things that we're including into our cross. We have 23 males, 18 divided by 23 times 4. We will get a ratio around 3. Same thing for the small. So essentially what we have here is that both of these traits are not due to sex linkage. So height is not due to sex linkage as well. Now, if you are wondering what the actual mode of inheritance is for this particular data set, what this may be is something called pleiotropy. But for now, since we haven't really covered what pleiotropy is, we can just ignore that for now. But the actual mode of inheritance for this data set will be pleiotropy. But for now, we can ignore that. Okay, cool. So basically, hopefully that kind of made sense. I put up a bit of an easy one for you guys. So let's try a little bit of a different one, where we're a zoologist, and what we're doing here is we're studying the uncurving trait. You have a pure breeding male that has big toes and an uncurving to the shell. And then you have a pure breeding female with small toes and a regular shell. So then it tells you the F1 were all big toed, but only the males had an uncurving to the shell. And this is the data set that you have. So based on this, what you want to do is, same thing, we're going to separate out each trait individually one by one. So let's look at the toe trait. And what we want to do is we want to figure out if there's a difference between the males and the females for the toe trait. So yes. So with the toe trait, we have 206 males that have big toe, and then we have 69 males that are small-toed, and then same thing over here, 206, 69. So obviously, just by looking at this particular data set, you can immediately tell that that the trait is basically, you're getting the same amount of individuals here. So therefore, this trait is in particular not due to sex linkage. But we can try out to figure out the ratios. So the total between the males, so 209 plus 69 is 278. So 278, and the females as well. So essentially right here, it'll be 206 divided by 278. And because we suspect it's the big versus the small trait, it's due to a single gene, we're going to multiply by 4. Let me calculate that. So that's a ratio around 3. And then the other one, 69, 278 times 4. Which is around 1. And then because the numbers are the same, we can say the same thing for the females as well. So therefore, the toe trait is not due to sex linkage. And that's all you have to do for that. But let's see what the uncurving trait is. To be honest, I don't even know what uncurving is, but you're going to get some really confusing ones on your exam. So it is what it is. So let's write down uncurving here. So yes, for uncurving, we're going to separate out the males and the females again. So what we have here is males 206 uncurving, and the only other males that we have are also uncurving. So basically 278 of males are uncurving. And then we have 206 females, 206 females that are regular, or 69 females that are regular shell. So then 278 of females are regular shell. So now what we have here is a situation where the phenotypic ratio between the uncurving trait is not the same between males and females. Right? Because what we're saying here is that we're saying that males are uncurving, whereas females don't actually have an uncurving phenotype at all associated with them. So therefore they have two different phenotypic ratios between them. Right? So because of this, what we can say is that the uncurving trait is due to sex linkage. So what we need to do now is we need to figure out what kind of sex linkage is this. Is this X-linked? Or is this Y-linked? So now here's another thing that a lot of people struggle on is after they get to the point where they can see that there's X linkage or there's sex linkage, a lot of people struggle on figuring out if it's Y-linked or X-linked. So now, Y-linked is a pretty easy one to figure out. the reason why it's easy is because every single male is going to give their trait to every single male, and then so on and so forth, right? So what you can do is you can look at the problem from the original paragraph, and you can write down what the phenotype of the male was. The phenotype of the male was that he had an uncurving to the shell. So what we want to do is, if we want to figure out if this is Y-linked or not, we need to look at where this uncurving is going into what sex. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the F1, which is right here. It tells you that all the F1 were big-toed, but only the males had an uncurving. So because of this, therefore, you have to look at the F2 as well. But just keep in mind that the males, they all had uncurving in the F1. And then you look at the F2, every single one of these males had an uncurving to them. So therefore the uncurving trait is due to Y linkage. Or the curve shell is due to Y linkage. And if you're curious, how do you figure out if it's Y or if it's X linkage or not, you can just simply eliminate this option altogether by reading the paragraph, and you will get an answer as X linkage. Sometimes I also get questions about, for these problems in particular, is like, do you need to figure out if it's X-linked recessive, dominant, or whatever, versus recessive? And the answer is no. You don't need to figure out that, because if you had a recessive trait that is due to X linkage, at the same time you're also going to have a trait that is also due to dominancy. So therefore you don't actually need to figure out if a particular trait is due to dominancy or recessiveness. You only need to figure out if it's being inherited through X linkage. So let's do one more problem. This video is getting kind of long, but one more problem. So now I'm giving you the ratios or the proportion right now, and what you need to figure out is if this particular trait is due to sex linkage or not. So same thing, what we're going to do is we're going to separate out the wing size first. So let's get rid of the eyes for now. So what we have here is we have 3/8, and we're going to separate these out over here. So the males, females, so what we have here is 3/8 male or full wing plus 1/8. So basically 4/8 males are full winged, and then you have same thing, 3/8 plus 1/8. Oops, my bad, I did not read the question. That'll be full wing, and then mini is also 3/8 plus 1/8. So the mini is right here. So we're combining those together, which we get 4/8 are minis as well. Okay. So now let's look at the females now. The females are basically 4 out of 4 for full wing. So because of this, we have a completely different ratio. We have a completely different phenotypic ratio between the males and the females. So therefore, wing size is due to sex linkage. Okay, we can't really determine from this problem well, then we can only, like I said, we can only just refer to this as sex linkage for now. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, but for the eye color. And what you can do on your exam paper, you can just cross these out to make it less confusing. And get rid of the wing size. Okay, so eye color. So the first one is red eye, and then the other one is purple. Okay, so for the males, you have 3/8 that are red, and another 3/8 that are red. So basically 6/8. 6/8 are red. And then you have a total of 2/8 that are purple. So basically these guys over here are purple, you're adding them together. And then these guys that are red, you're adding them together as well. So in other words, the way how you can simplify this to 3/4. And then this can be written down as 1/4. Now let's do the same thing for the females. For the females, you have 3/4 or red eye, and then you have 1/4 being purple eye. So 3/4 being red, and 1/4 being purple. And then, as you can tell, for the eye color, this trait is not due to sex linkage because we exhibit the exact same phenotypic ratio between the males and the females. And then that's basically it. That's how you do these problems. They're pretty simple. As soon as you get the hang of it, always make sure to make your traits independent of one another because of the law of independent assortment, and then you can get to these answers pretty easily. That's it.